Hey everybody, it's Nico.
And I'm TK.
And this is X's for Podcast X-Men 98. This is the moment. We're happy. We're doing it. We are relaunching our show with our favorite comics from days gone by. We're going to be taking a look at some amazing stories. When we get further on, we're going to be looking at things like New X-Men and more. But to kick things off, we are starting firmly in the X-Men world of 1998. So we're kicking things off right around X-Men 80 and Uncanny 360. These were literally the first books my dad bought me. I'm, like 11, 12 years old. These are the first X-Men comics monthly coming out that my dad is buying for me. So this is like my magic area. This is like my sweet spot. And I have been like talking about this Children of the Atom era for like a trillion years. Come to find out it's 2 issues. My bad. But I am so excited to talk about with you, TK. This is magic. This is a candy shop.
And it's really funny because this is where I jump off. I loved everything up through Onslaught. I loved Onslaught. I thought it was great. I was very moved by the Onslaught storyline at the time and the sacrifice of all the heroes. I thought Heroes Reborn was a little dumb, but I was very moved when everybody sacrificed themselves to stop Onslaught. And then I was getting into my teenage years. I was starting to think about what made a kid cool. And also, I wasn't loving Zero Tolerance. Like, I never like when the X-Men are on the run. Like, I never like when they're on the ropes. They can be on the ropes at home. Like, as long as they've got a mansion to hang out in, they can be on the ropes. But if they don't have a mansion or an island nation, I don't love it. I guess it's always in the case. So like I started to get a little antsy during Zero Tolerance, and I started to just wonder if maybe it was time for me to act like a grown-up and stop reading comics. And I made it through most of Zero Tolerance. And then I said, I'm going to spend my allowance elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And I did not start reading again until the Bacalo issues of New X-Men.
Wow.
So this is my I that was completely unaware of most, and I have since gone back and read certain things, but very piecemeal. Like I read the 12 just because there were certain things I wanted to know. There's other things here and there that I've checked out. This right here, like literally, for instance, we will eventually get to the Chuck Austin run that is parallel to New X-Men, and like I've read basically all of that when I realized I was going to start picking up comics again. But this is what we covered here. I have never seen a single panel of, which is exciting.
Well, I love that. That's so exciting for me to hear. Oh my gosh, I love that. So I just want to double check. You're saying you took an OZT break because you hopped out right around Operation Zero Tolerance. Love. And you went out on Bacalo. You get to come back in on Bacalo.
Yeah.
Like a magic there. There's like a symmetry, right?
Yeah.
I love that. And because like I did the same thing. I started spending my money on albums. I had certain music I needed, and as cool as my mom was that she had a couple of Tori Amos records, and she already had Sarah McLachlan fumbling towards ecstasy, praise, but like she was not gonna be out there buying me Orgy. She was not going to be out there getting me, Downward Spiral and The Fragile. So like I had work to do. Right. Forbid. I was like, Ma, can you go grab me some Tool? But my father remained a big comic guy. And like most men in their 30s and 40s at the time, he collected and didn't read. So he just bought these and delivered them unto me. So I completely identify with where you're at. So you probably weren't aware of the unbelievable chrome covers for these, where it's all foil magic and like everything pops off the page. This is right after Excalibur, which they barely reference exactly. Like they kind of allude to it, but they also kind of act like Colossus was a longtime member of Excalibur, and the gentleman came in like Excalibur 90 of 125 or so. So everybody calm down. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Just to put it out there, we're going to be taking a look at Uncanny 360 through 364, all written by Stephen T. Siegel, art mostly by Chris Bacalo, with some fill-ins by Steve Skroce. The inkers on these are Tim Townsend, Jordy Elgin, Aaron Sode, John Siebel, Peter Palmati, Scott Hanna, Rob Hunter, Harry Calendario, Art Thurber. Over on X-Men, which is 80 through 84, we are all covering Joe Kelly issues with art by Brandon Peterson and then Adam Kubert, famous, incredible legacy artist. Pascal Ferry also appears on the pencils there. The inkers on this are Art Thurber, Dan Panasian, Mark Farmer, John Dell, Jesse Delperdang, John Livesey, Bob Wiakek, and Victor Lamas, along with Matt Banning and Pascal Ferry splitting duties on that last issue. Colors across the board by Shannon Blanchard, Mike Rockwitz, Liquid, Steve Bucatello, Felix Serrano, Richard Isanov, and Monica Kubina. Additionally, we're going to cover a few more issues, including the X-Men Doctor Doom Annual 1998, X-Men Unlimited 21 and 22, as well as Uncanny 365. These issues are by Todd DeZago, Andy Smith, Andrew Hennessy, along with the unbelievable early appearance of Brian K. Vaughn on X-Men Unlimited 22 with Patrick Gleason, Tom Newen, and Matt Webb. The annual is by Jorge Gonzalez, Aaron Lopresti, who would go on to do things like Genoshan Excalibur Volume 3, with inks by Art Thurber and Jamie Mendoza, Shannon Blanchard on colors. I cannot wait to talk about that issue, which is just like the most, that is the blueprint for putting the X-Men in Doomsday, for the record, folks. All of the letters are in one way or another contributed by Richard Starking's Comic Craft, though we also see work from David Lanphier, and that's just so many credits. These books were released from August of 1998 through December of 1998, with the exception of Unlimited 22, which was February of 99, and the X-Men Doctor Doom Annual, which was April of 98. So this is a really cool time, because this is a big reset, and they don't realize how many resets are coming. But folks, if you think about the fact that new X-Men, this is not that far away. This is 34 issues. It's not even 3 years. So that we're going to go from what we're talking about now to E is for Extinction. The very book that this show is named for is like wild and crazy comics, kids. This is absolutely an incredible time to be reading the books. The editorial maybe didn't think so all the time, but I had a great time. And we've tried to break this down sort of interestingly. There's this initial 2-issue relaunch, Children of the Atom. Then there's this 2-issue Gambit arc, because Gambit had just gotten found out for being a bad man. Then we have the Hunt for Xavier, which is 6 issues that could have been an annual, but also could have been an era. I don't know. It's a hard one to talk about, but I have a lot of positive notes. And then we're going to be talking about what's essentially the prelude to the Magneto War. I'm way ahead on the reading, because like as soon as I got going, I could not stop. I was like rolling downhill, and I'm promising you Magneto War is a lot of fun when we get to it. This brings Gambit back to the fold, Kitty back to the fold. Peter is back. This is, and Xavier himself. I mean, that's the whole point of the era, right? So like this is a wild ride. And had you remembered how many of these people were gone, and that it was like Iceman, Dr. Cecilia Reyes, which no one say a bad word about Dr. Cecilia Reyes. I will not hear it.
It jogged my memory. But again, like I kind of didn't really think about the fact that the team dynamics had been different before this, just because it was so long ago.
It's so different and so fun. And one of the things that, like, if you want to jump right in, we can jump right in.
Where else would we go?
Right off the bat, one of the things that absolutely made my heart sing is on the first page of Uncanny 360. The first line of dialogue, as drawn by Chris Bacala, one of the greatest pencilers to ever work on X-Men, is, "Thanks, Jack and Stan. I'm live at Cape Citadel, Florida. Stan Lee and Jack Kirby were the creators of the X-Men, did the issue that they're referencing here when they start talking about, this is the anniversary of what Magneto did." It is such a cool way to dial in to a classic era. It kind of reminds me of when Steve Wacker was doing a best quote from Daredevil #1 in then 2, then 3 in the background of Daredevil 501, 502, 503. Like a really beautiful symmetry, but unfortunately that era was not as fun as this, right? It kicks off really quickly in a really positive way. And I think one of the things that I love about this particular point of view is it does so much to define things by not really showing them. They don't really show us Operation Zero Tolerance. They tell us about it in a way that's really digestible. We don't see Xavier so much, and that's, ultimately a reveal. But one of my favorite things in the entire world is Excalibur comes home, and we get these insane Brotherhood X-Men, Grey King, Crux, Landslide, Chaos, Rapture, Mercury. I would write that team for the rest of my X-Men life.
And this is, I agree, and this is where I immediately also get stressed out. Not a single one of them has ever returned.
Nope.
None of them were resurrected on Krakoa. What this whole thing made me notice, and it's cool, but it also is just like, it's making me feel a lot of things. Everything that I like that is referential about comics and the greats that I love that reference previous comics glossed over this era. Clearly, none of them found it redeemable. We'll get into it more later, but I mean, I'm furious with him for personal reasons all over the place, but I'm furious with Joss Whedon now as a comics writer, screwing all of his bad behaviors. This puts Astonishing in a terrible light, and we will talk about why later. Mm-hmm. But I'm annoyed with Hickman now because not one of these, I mean, it's not just Hickman. I'm annoyed with every single person that resurrected a mutant. Spurrier, every single person that resurrected a mutant during Krakoa. Not one of these weird, literally 2 issues. Maybe it's 4 because it's technically jumping back and forth, but they're dead at the end of this arc. All of them have two appearances, so it's 2 issues. I've got my notes
Uncanny 360 and X-Men 80.
Yep, and they never appear again. And there's just stuff like that all over the place where, when Hickman puts Paige Guthrie in the first issues of Hoxpox to show us all like, hey, I love Generation X too. I'm like, yeah, dude, like this is a guy that read comics during the sort of what I call the filthy period. Like, cause I love it, but like, people think it's like 90s Philistine. Phil. Exactly. People think it's 90s Philistine writing and it's not good. So it's not cool to like anything that came from the 90s. And now we've sort of turned around on that. And it's all cool to like, except for, I guess, really everything after Onslaught. Because between Onslaught and Morrison, there's a lot of stuff that just either doesn't get referenced or gets really massaged in a way that I think doesn't honor the love that you have to have for the fact that it was good and bad. And like the 12 is a great example of that. A lot of characters involved in the 12 are important, but Apocalypse, the hero father of Krakoa, is never like, here's why that actually did matter and why some of these people who we never talk about anymore actually were the most important mutants and why I might ever mention Nate Gray again.
Someone bring up Living Monolith, quick.
I mean, come on. It's wild that this is a zone that nobody wants to touch and it's immediately apparent.
And, it's so interesting because I think part of what this era also represents, exactly in your point, is like a weak spot for a lot of people's cultural interpretation of the X-Men. Yeah. I don't think we're the first show to talk about this era, but I do think not enough people look at this time. And I think it's because of some of the unattractive parallels it draws. We're going to get to a character named Cerebro in a minute that makes Danger look recycled.
And and that's when I said that I was angry at Joss Whedon. That's exactly why. It's the exact same story, and it doesn't reference. There are so many characters who are the exact same character. I always go to the example of the Ladies Mastermind. An editor said, "No, she's busy. You can't have Mastermind's daughter." So Austin or Clarence, one of them said, "Okay, well then there's a second daughter.
Fine, there's one in purple and one in black."
Yeah, and now we have 2, and like they reference each other, they play with each other. It's very funny. It's a crowd pleaser when they show up. They're hot and stupid, and who knows?
The sugar and spice of the X-Men universe.
Oh my God. Truly, we need to call them and get that cosplay going immediately. Meanwhile, Joss Whedon will just be like, oh yeah, there were actually 2 computer systems running directly parallel to each other and often interfacing that were both going through sentience. And they never interacted, and it doesn't matter that one of them has already been going through something. Here's the new one. Ain't she pretty? We gave her cyborg boobs.
And don't get me wrong, Danger is
I
so
love
hot.
Danger. Yeah.
Truly. It was done first, and not like nothing. And I'm sure there are examples that came before this, but it's down to this character, Cerebro, is out to destroy mutant kind and also kind of humanity. And it's a developed version of the Cerebro system with Shi'ar technology kind of come to life as a result of Xavier's machinations, essentially while Xavier was away, which is literally Danger. And so, like, it's really tough. It's almost as tough as looking at Marrow. I think Marrow is too ugly in this era. We're not far from Alan Davis being like, I can't draw her, she's too ugly, make her beautiful. But, like, I can't look at Marrow. I am not a Marrow fan. First of all, I am not a Top Chef, and I do not think that you need to work gastronomy and Marrow into every dish. Sorry about it. Congratulations, Tiffany Derry, being on Worst Cooks. Love you. But I truly, for as much as I love Cerebro as a villain, and I really do, like, I think Cerebro and that whole Cerebro Ascendant arc that we're going to get into later is so fucking fascinating, made for a great villain for this read for me. I hate where Rogue is. Rogue, so famously on every edition of this show, I talk about how Rogue is the literal heart and beating soul of the X-Men. She is, for me, the most important X-Man by such a wide margin. It's not even funny how important Rogue is to the X-Men for me. She's like Jon Stewart for the Lanterns. Like, it's beyond where I can say Rogue is the most important X-Man. When she is the one who saves Xavier toward the end of the Hoxpox era, it is one of my favorite moments in X-Men history because Rogue is the most loyal, loving, caring daughter he's ever had. But, oh my God, at this point in her career, she is literally the whiny girlfriend. And, like, it's such a bummer. I hate when people, go down to, like, she's a Southern girl who's hung up on a boy. That's one part of her. And every Southern girl knows that's just one part of them.
You're right about everything. At the same time, where we are today, like, for this, the first thing I thought about is, like, this marriage is even more beautiful. The Gambit and Rogue's marriage in 2025 is even more beautiful to me because we went through this.
Oh, I love that.
First and foremost, because eventually, if it's a good relationship, you have to suck for a piece of it. If you are in a relationship that's going to go long term, either it starts out and you become one of those people that just becomes obsessed with your partner, and then you have to go tuck tail and go back to your friends and be like, I know I have just ignored all of you for the last hopefully 3 months, maybe 3 years, but I'm back to being a person. Maybe it is like this, where you guys are both not great for each other at this time in your life, and you just go back and forth being torturous and terrible. And again, you have to go to your friends and be like, yeah, he definitely murdered a few people. I do still love him. Who among us? Cast the first stone, you fools.
I constantly kill an entire species in a sewer. Like,
you know,
by accident.
I'll touch a guy here and there and drain his life force. I'm not going to yell at this man. She is a bit compromised by 90s men writing her. At the same time, you can tell with their stupid heterosexual 90s man hearts that they are invested in this romance, and they are trying to make a thing happen. And they are trying to account for the fact that these two people love each other, that they're both angry with each other for different reasons, that they express themselves differently. Also, that we're 30 years set back from a lot of Rogue's character development after we basically, like, we don't know quite where we're going to end doing all this, but after the Morrison run, like when we get into Mike Carey on the X-Men, and then we do Legacy, that's where Rogue really starts to become, like, you know, your fontanelle closes, like prefrontal cortex stops growing, like fully adult Rogue. Like, she really comes into her own in that era. But we're a decade off from that here.
And a decade and so much speed.
Yeah, and then everything after that, she grows more and more. And so it's just like, It's not good, but it kind of also is what makes loving comics and serial storytelling that goes for 60 plus years so awesome, because it's actually the growth of a human being. It's actually the growth of a person over time. And we're looking at that time where you go, man, she kind of sucked here, but like everything that, not everything, but a lot of things that make her great are in this. And you see little seeds and little things that will grow into the woman that, burst through a Nimrod to go pick up her dad mentor. And even though she was really mad at him, make sure that he got somewhere safe, in the same way that even though she's really mad at Remy, she's gonna go talk to him. She does that.
You know what? I agree with her. I am also in love with a cooking rat. Kidding. It's the only two Remys I can think. Oh, Remy Shand. But
Remy Ma.
Oh, Remy Ma, yes. So sorry, Remy's. You're all. I apologize to the Remy's. Fantastic. I really especially love what you're pointing out, because one of the other things that I noted in this was how excellently Kate is handled here. I'm going to just put it out there. As a young man, I had some older partners. And, you know, I'm talking about like as a teenager, I dated dudes in their 30s. Sorry. As a teenager, I dated dudes in my... I'm time traveling. No, as a teenager, I had some much older partners. And even now, I have a partner that's a bit older than me. And I think if you read Kate as 19 in Excalibur, maybe 20, if you allow for a little bit more real-time aging, and you look at Pete Wisdom as a hardened 30, a 10-year gap on them actually makes it not awful, and you cannot like it. But what I liked about it is not every relationship you're in is the one. I don't ship them now. I don't want them together now. I continue to enjoy Pete Wisdom a lot. Unfortunately, that he is a stand-in for, a bastard man is a little tough. But I feel like this is such a great treatment of Kate immediately following Excalibur, where she grew up so much. In X-Men 80, she is like the absolute motherfucking bomb shit. She is like here to save the day. And one of the things that I love, especially about the beautiful juxtaposition of 360 into 80, is you've got these unbelievable two-page panel spreads from Bacalo in 360 that are visually unforgettable. And, you know, the truth is, as much as I love his work, Brandon Peterson, who, of course, would go on to do amazing work even 20, 30 years after this, is not the same visual stylist, right? And, like, that's not an insult, you know, by saying that Law Roach and Christian Siriano, one is a stylist, one is a designer. I'm not casting any doubt on the ability of Law Roach. I'm saying that some people see art in one way and some people see art in another way. And the much more literal page spreads from Peterson in that first issue, especially when you've got Kitty running from like a landslide and Mercury in that first two-page spread. You know, number one, I really love that she has this very, in that first page in particular, this very wavy, curly, and, you know, I hope it comes out the way I mean it, but
she has very Jewish hair.
It's what I need her to have.
Yeah. I mean, like, this is a guy who would have drawn Wanda the way that people would prefer Wanda be drawn. And just to what you're saying, there's also, I mean, there's a lot of people here who this is 30 years back in a career that's going to keep going for 30 years.
Oh, yeah.
We'll talk about it later, but Laniel Francis Yu draws an issue, and I didn't like it to start because it's not what his art looks like now.
Oh, for sure.
I think he like actually kind of grows into the issue. Like he draws into the issue and it sort of improves as the issue goes on. But there's like an immediate image of Professor Xavier where he looks like Wilson Fisk. And it just like, this man is going to continue. This man is going to continue drawing comics for 30 years, and his style is going to improve and complexify and evolve. And so, you know, we're seeing people here that are going to keep doing stuff. So we might see stuff that, you know, it maybe isn't my first choice for like when I'm going to nominate their best issues. But like seeing Rogue grow, it's pretty amazing to see artists grow and look back at a thing that they've done where you say like, well, I can't draw a page of comics, let alone an entire issue. So this is impressive no matter what. It just might not be my favorite thing that they've done. And I love how much they've grown. Peterson, I think, is sort of an example of that, but also like the literality of it, as you were saying, is like he shows people bruised and battered in a way that looks like Bacala will do it and it's cartoonish and cool, but cartoonish. Peterson does it in a way that, oh, this character looks like they just got beat up.
Oh, yeah. And, I love what you're pointing out, because we're going to get to Lionel Francis Yu being one of the main pencilers on the Revolution era by episode 9 of this edition of what we're doing. There is so much referential work in this period, down to this Brotherhood that I love. This, Gray King actually manifests vaguely the Phoenix Force, what?
Carlos Pacheco said he specifically drew him to be a mix of Jean Grey and Sebastian Shaw, which is why his name is Gray King.
I love that.
Yeah.
And, we've got Peter Corbeau here. We have messages from GW Bridge. It's so interesting to see that this is meant to be such a great reflection period. And there are so many great group cast shots. If you take a look at 360 and 80s covers, they are such a beautiful symmetry of the old and the new. Genuinely, this is, I think, 80 pages of X-Men magic. There's the X-Men are depowered. The X-Men kind of fight each other for a minute. The X-Men are separated and have to come back together. There's Kate using technology as a survivor story. Logan says bub. It ends with a surprise villain. There's pinups for no reason. I genuinely have such a great time with these 2 issues. I just really feel like the creative team should be celebrated for creating what should have been a perfect jumping on point, and I don't think isn't, but I don't think is remembered that way.
Yeah, it's not. I never hear people talk about this. Like I said, I never hear people talk about this, and creators don't reference it. Once we wrap this up, we go into an issue of X-Men that has a villain that this is her only appearance. And again, she's a mutant. Was she in the queue for the protocols? Also, this is I'm stoked about this because not only have I not read this, but it's not referenced. I was not been compelled. I can't believe I never at any point reading Krakoa saw somebody go, and we got Zeos resurrected. Also, Zeos, insanely offensive depiction of an autistic person, just like Monet was back in the day. Forever, everybody should apologize for their lack of understanding about autism.
But that's why you should resurrect them and fix it.
Exactly. So the fact that, nobody ever said one of these characters has been resurrected, and I go, what? I don't recognize that name at all. Who is that? Cross-reference and discover it's from this era and go back, and at least nothing has compelled me to read a single, besides Nico telling me we're doing it today. Nothing in the last 2 decades of starting to read comics again has compelled me to read any of this, and that's wild.
Down to it brings back the fastball special right away. At this point, Colossus was a villain to the X-Men, and he was only on Excalibur because, even at the time, Moira was kind of like, Moira's always kind of been like, she showed up with a machine gun in her first appearance. So we have called her Machine Gun Moira on this show since our first episode, quite literally. I really agree with you. I have such an amazing time with this. To hop forward a minute to what you're referencing, where Kali appears and is like, that's her only appearance as a bad guy. This Gambit 2-parter, I have gone on record as saying, I kind of hate Gambit. I do. Number one, that he is in a jazzercise outfit from 1994 with a trench coat. The trench coat makes it okay. He has all of the coolest accessories, a retractable bow staff, playing cards. He's often shown throwing dice, manchali. He speaks French. These are things that I literally define my character by. And yet, at the same time, he sucks. And so, I don't know. It's so funny to me because I didn't even realize once that he wasn't in those 2 issues. Not even once. And then he's in these. And let me just tell you, we're not going to cover it directly on the show, but this whole how Gambit comes back gets covered in the first 7 issues of his upcoming solo, plus the annual. We're going to pick things up at the Shattering, which is Gambit issues 8 and 9. So if you guys want to find out more about what we're talking about, please go ahead and read Gambit Volume 3, 1 through 7, and then Annual 99 by Fabian Nicieza and Steve Scroce. You guys can get every answer you want there. they're not great answers. But that's the problem when the question is really good. Sometimes the answer can't be great. Not the question is Renee Montoya.
Yeah, I don't have the same defense of Gambit that I do of Rogue. Gambit is a character that fandom has put a lot of fantasies onto, and if all of those fantasies were true, he would be a very cool character. Ooh. And writers come in, like Gail Simone right now writes him as though those things have always been true, and she's not going to give you any story bits that actually validate that fact, but she writes him as though he has become the man we want him to be. Rogue went through the process, as I mentioned before, of many people writing her and giving her great story and character development, such that the woman that Gail Simone is also writing, you can track the linear, non-linear, but somewhat of a line progression of how she became that woman, how she came into her own, how it stopped being a deadly danger for her to touch people, how she worked through things with her mother, how she eventually got married. With Gambit, I don't know who the right person is to write this caricature of a man and do that sort of character development with him, but nobody has. They have done things like, through little lines here and there, make your headcanon of the idea that Gambit is pansexual or would have sex with a man in some capacity not outlandish to consider. It's never on paper. He has not kissed a man or said he would like to, but people, because that is a fantasy, because so many boys were attracted to Gambit from everything from X-Men to the animated series to these comics growing up, a lot, and because he's in bisexual flag colors, a lot of queer men have a thing for Gambit and want that to be reflected in the character in comics. No one has really done it, but they do make it feasible for you to have that fantasy and not go, but it's totally my fantasy. You could go like, no, it could happen, which is cool, which is cute, but it's very different than let's make Rogue the leader of the X-Men and show that she has come so far from, being this person that could barely control herself and was like kind of a villain. They gave Gambit cats, which is very cute. And, I love that Gambit has cats, but like, what does he stand for? Loving Rogue. I mean, like, it's actually kind of great that the tables have turned a little bit and Gambit really only exists to love Rogue. Like, his only real purpose is to prop up the better person in the relationship and be devoted to her. And I sort of only buy Gambit now when he's doing that. Like if ever he comes on to, like, again, Gail Simone's X-Men book and is like, hey, I've got a big thing from my background that we have to talk about, or like that I'm bringing to the table, I don't care about it at all. I don't buy it. I don't think it's important. I don't think there's anything going on with the Thieves Guild or the Assassins Guild that will ever matter. But whatever he wants to do for Rogue and however he wants to support his woman, I'm here for it.
I, as a rule, think that Gambit kind of represents all of the people that I walk by. I'm in Atlantic City and Vegas like 6 times a year between the two, and he is just like every hot guy that I walk by in a top to bottom sweat tracksuit. You know what I mean? With the matching hat and everything. And you are so right. X-Men, Uncanny X-Men 361, that cover is the most pink and purple I had ever seen on a comic book. It is ferociously queer, and like I love it because series contributor Tori, I think she loves the fanon idea of Gambit a lot, and I think that she would be truly disheartened by the weak sauce that Gambit provides, because once again the whole story behind Gambit is like, what don't you know? What thing is a secret? What is he hiding? Honestly, I've dated enough shitty guys that I don't want a shitty X-Man. Sorry about it. I'll take mine Bishop, please. I'll take mine Nightcrawler, please. Hell, Pete Wisdom is actually kind of a better guy than Gambit most of the time, because Pete Wisdom will fuck you over to your face. And Gambit also kind of immediately winds up in a very uncomfortable storyline where Marrow winds up being like, oh, you're such a... And I just want to be like, girl, he killed half your family. I know you don't know yet, but oh my God. It's also tough for me because I don't think so. First of all, Sabretooth is actually a Chris Claremont created Iron Fist villain that when he lost Iron Fist, he just transferred over onto Wolverine. So write that down. But I don't think of Gambit as that other Wolverine exactly. So Gambit and Sabretooth having so much historical chemistry, not like page chemistry, but like that history of being like our two major points on the Marauders map. Oh God, not what I meant to say. That one. But I would take a Grey Crow over Gambit as a great foil for Sabretooth any day. These two issues, they're fine. I think my favorite thing about it was the fact that we get some Black Tom, we get some Juggernaut, we get some Korean folk teams. I finally watched K-pop Demon Hunters in November. Let me tell you, I'm a roomie. It's totally what I am. Hey, guys. I also thought that when Kate was like, LOL, Mr. Viper. For those of you who don't know, when Chris Claremont came back to the X-Men for 6 issues, he came back to Wolverine, and he had Wolverine marry Viper. And that was one of like, I just thought that was the best one-off cutting joke in the world. I was over the moon at that joke because I don't get it. Why would I even... There's certain things where I'm like, ooh, I would have that person do that. No, I can't. I cannot think of a good reason that person would ever do that. No, that's just plot insanity.
That's another thing that would be so funny to reference in 2025.
If a hero called Viper Stepmommy.
Yeah, exactly. Like the fact, or, you know, same thing, like Laura has to fight Viper and she's like, I could have been your mom. You know, the fact that we went through all of Children of the Atom with the various children that Mystique has had with the various X-Men, and one of them is, you know, a child that she has with Wolverine. It's just
Battle of the Atom, just to double check.
Battle, not children.
Talking about
you.
There's two Children of the Atom, so automatically it's confusing. And then there's Battle of the Atom, and not the video game.
You know, that Wolverine has these random one-off romances. Anyway, this never comes up in X Lives and 10 Deaths. Again, like Hickman loves to reference, but just wasn't reading around now. So yeah, also very funny. This too off to explain the presence of Gambit is fine. I don't care. It's always fun to see Juggy and Black Tom. I thought the next issue, X-Men 81, which is the continuation of this story, which is a lot of Rogue lowering herself to be with a man who doesn't deserve her. I get why it wouldn't be somebody's favorite, but also like they do have a lot of very deep, beautiful conversation, and there is some real like pathos here and pathology, and like this idea of, it comes up at one point that, you know, Rogue abandoned Gambit in the Arctic, literally like to his death in the freezing cold. She literally physically dropped him and left, which to her mind could have killed him. And
get it, mama, I snapped.
Sure, yeah. And she had just touched him before that, and in this issue he points out, you had just absorbed my personality, and like I am filled with such self-loathing that I think you dropped me off in part because you have absorbed my hatred for myself. So there's just a lot of, there's a lot of interesting stuff happening. It's ultimately, again, it's a lovely marker on the journey of them ultimately getting married and being being one of the few long-term successful couples that it feels like we're not going to do stupid stories to break them up for the sake of having something to write. You know, I do really like that. And then this was a cool villain that felt like it was essentially Threnody. They never brought this character back or anything. Again, was she, like I said, was she in the resurrection queue on Krakoa? When was she getting brought in? What was going on? I don't know. Callie, we hardly knew ye.
Before we get to the Unlimited 21, I just want to give this first 4 issues an A-. I have such a great time with these 4. 360, 361, 80, and 81. Claps across the board. I hope you had as good a time jumping in as I did.
Yeah, I think I give it more like a B+, but I really did have a great time.
Okay, the major redeeming factors about X-Men Unlimited 21. For those of you who don't know, X-Men Unlimited was like this quarterly book that was meant to fill in holes. If you've seen my Skeets or my Instagram story, I am as disproportioned as Strong Guy. So it's like a big Dorito-shaped upper body and a little legs. I get Guido, who I honestly calling him that feels wrong. And also, speaking of writers who would go on to reference things, in this issue, Guido becomes king of hell, basically, and nobody brings that up in X Factor. I actually hate this issue. I give it a D at best. We're talking X-Men Unlimited 21. The one other thing that made my heart palpitate, like I'd had too many bang that morning, is that it mentions the Rutland Halloween Carnival, which is like a thing we talked about in our crossover episode, because Rutland is the one way that Marvel and DC could always communicate their stories together. They would all always be at the Rutland Halloween parade together. Rutland was a special thing, and it was really magical. And that this doesn't make it into any of the Rutland lists is kind of unfair. This issue has Strong Guy, Lila Cheney, Beast, Jamie Madrox, and Wolfsbane. This is like my sexualist highs and my sexualist lows. I don't know what to tell you. You've got Strong Guy who, yes, and then he speaks, no. You've got Lila Cheney, who at best is Cannonball's beard. Get out of here. Beast, who was great until 2005. You've got Jamie Madrox, who's always perfect. Hey, baby, you just call me. And then you've got Wolfsbane, who automatically makes every book terrible. Wolfsbane is Patience from Ghosts. I have no patience for her. I hate this story. It is basically somehow a dude summons some dark magic, and the X people, because they're not even X-Men, have to stop it. And for a minute, Guido becomes king of demons. Moira looks like a fucking Bratz doll. And Todd DeZago, you wrote so many amazing Vertigo stories. You should have kept it there.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that's cute about this is it's a Halloween story. Like, it's just meant to be a holiday story, which is cute, but it's not great. I mean, like, it's fine. It's whatever.
It's a whatever. And honestly, so many X-Men Unlimiteds are whatevers, which is why when we get to an X-Men Unlimited that, I mean, Aaron Sorkin to Matthew Perry, you rock my socks. I'm so excited to talk about it. God, that's my favorite thing that Sarah Paulson, her name is Sarah Paulson. That is my favorite thing she ever says. That brings us to the Hunt for Xavier, which as a kid, I was like Uncanny 362 through 364, X-Men 82 through 84. This was a crossover, motherfuckers. This was great. I loved this story as a kid. As an adult, I see where it's, maybe not the greatest story ever told. But what is? This was, for my money as a kid, one of the most fun things I ever read. This Bacalo cover for number 1 lives in my memory. The Bacalo cover for Cerebro. Oh, no, I don't think it's Bacalo that does Cerebro Ascendant. But part 6, that cover lives in my memory. I love this story, even with its flaws. I have such a great time with Kurt deferring leadership right away to Storm. I have a great time with the appearance of Dr. Cecilia Reyes, dialing into Pyro being so sick right after Pyro was in the first movie. So, like, ballsy choice, guys. It's such a continuous story. Toad is even sort of almost likable a little bit, kind of, sort of, maybe, not really. I'm not going to give Wolverine and the X-Men a pass for Toad and Paige. Please don't worry about it. I've read this like 10 times. How did you feel about the Hunt for Xavier? Which, again, B+, A- in my joy memory.
I really did think it was a B+. First off, though, again, this becomes a thing. This is bad for the future. It's not bad now. How many times are they going to lose this fucking guy? Like, why are we always hunting for Xavier? I really didn't think about it. The other 8 times that I've had to hunt for Xavier in my comics reading life, this is an early one. Like, I think they've only lost him 1 or 2 times at this point. So, third time's a charm. Hopefully we get him back. But, like, we keep losing this man. Stop doing it. They're searching for him now. Where is he?
I feel terrible, but, like, he is literally stationary. He's not Waldo or Carmen Sandiego. Guys, just throw a track tracker on his chair. Specifically, I know plenty of people who are in wheelchairs that are far, far more mobile than I am. This gentleman is super
Professor Xavier, when he is in the wheelchair, he don't be going a lot of places.
No, he sits at that desk and then he lays down in bed and gets space bird sack.
Yeah, I mean, we just did that event that he then left and went to go be an Imperial. And again, it was a hunt for Xavier. It's always a hunt for Xavier. Here, it makes a lot more sense. Again, there's events coming up, like Extreme X-Men, when Storm is our plans have diverged. Charles, I'm taking a group of people and we're going to go do something else. It feels like a big growing up point for all of the students / X-Men in terms of just being even though a lot of them were adults for most of their tenure as X-Men under Charles Xavier, there was always this sense, and it's a sense that is so visceral to me that I feel it, and I still hate the idea of Charles Xavier not being a good guy and the leader of the X-Men. But there's always this sense of he's the leader and he is their dad, and they need to search for him because they need him back in place to lead them. And then we get past New X-Men. We get Emma and Scott becoming headmaster and headmistress. Storm has left with a bunch of people. And we then do just the greatest hits of what a bastard Xavier is and what horrible things he did to set things up. And so it just really more and more, it's not just, it is this thing of the kids all have to face that he is not their one point of leadership and he's not at the top of the pyramid. It's a much bigger thing happening here and they can't always go to him. And it's heartbreaking. And there is this sort of loss of innocence and loss of childhood, but then they're just constantly they're constantly looking for him, whether it's to yell at him or to get new, to find out why something happened, cause he's got the one secret, cause he's got the thing. From here on out, they're just always going to be hunting for Xavier, but this is a really early one. And so it read well. It made sense to be looking for Xavier at this time, and it didn't feel overwrought. And it had what I feel would have felt to me like a very compelling villain in Cerebro. That's one of those things that's a visceral thing that you can't get back. I already had Danger, so I just can't have that feeling of, oh, the thing got corrupted and gained sentience and turned against him. I already had that moment, but it was not original. It's probably not original here either. This is probably not the first time this has been thought of. I sort of just tried to release what I had known is coming up and just sort of enjoy this for what it was. And it is absolutely not the fault of any writer here that this is going to get used again. It's good writing. It's an interesting plot. It's an interesting story.
It's not the fault of Tristan and Isolde that Romeo and Juliet did
right,
better.
Precise. Yes, exactly. Nina is going to appear in 3 issues of the recent to this upcoming Astonishing X-Men, not
Volume 2.
Volume. Thank you.
AOA one. And hey, guys, we're going to be covering AOA bi-weekly with this series. So, guys, tune in. There's going to be so much Astonishing X-Men that's not the one you're thinking of that you're going to get constantly confused.
So she appears in that, and then Never Again. She's basically Cosmar from Krakoa. Why would we not just have this character? Why would we not resurrect her? Again, because nobody read this and nobody cared, and this isn't anybody's reference material, which is just a bummer. That was another. As soon as I saw Nina, I was like, this is a cool character, but it is Cosmar. She is physically mutated in a way where she would have trouble going out in society. She has these big black eyes.
And wait till you see her true form.
Yeah, I'm sure. She puts them all in a warped reality that again looks like Cosmar's warped reality that comes up in Vita Ayala's New Mutants. Thank you. It's just such a bummer because this character's never appeared again, and she's cute and she's cool and I like her, and she's not written too much like a baby. She doesn't speak in baby talk, but she's written like a kid, but she's written like a really headstrong kid who feels like she's gonna be a good X-Man, who feels like she would have been great in Generation X, who feels like she could have gone to Academy X with those
closer
kids.
to Kevin McAllister than Dennis the Menace.
Thank you.
I vibe that 1,000%.
No. I really like this character. I like a lot of stuff about this. And again, it just bums me out that this was nobody's heyday who writes at Marvel now. This was nobody's like childhood, I loved it period, who writes at Marvel now. So all of this stuff is just left there unreferenced when it's not bad. I mean, I get it. It's not the greatest thing ever written, but I read a lot of comics, man. This is good. This is really enjoyable. I slog through stuff for this show, and I love to do it. You know, wow, we slogged through all of Amalgam. That's how we got here. And a lot of that was like, this is not good. I'm not having fun reading this. But I had fun reading everything that we talked about today.
I completely agree. You know, I even found myself questioning Post. Post was like the herald of Onslaught, and I was like, what is he doing here? But this Brotherhood is vaguely in service of Xavier, like vaguely, but not quite. And so having this Post here made a lot of sense. And then one of the things that I think isn't really hit hard enough by the script here is that a Cerebrite kills Post. And so Cerebrite is this other form of Cerebro, while Cerebro is becoming Cerebro Ascendant. And so, like, there is so much stuff going on. And at one point, Cerebro possesses Colossus. And so this poor guy, if you look at just covers, it's like Colossus, also that painter, also the proletariat, also Cerebro Colossus. Like, and if you read Earth X, Mr. Sinister, like, it's bizarre how much this poor man and his white man's flat top just gets reused over and over again. I truly think one of the things that is the most fun about having a storyline that references the Brotherhood vaguely in service of Xavier is that we know that Magneto is coming back soon, although I think readers at the time were meant to think that wasn't happening. Yeah, sure, good job. And that's not how people felt at the time. The thing that really had me excited was in 364, one of Cerebro's final issues. Cerebro gets 5 incredible pages of characterization. I would trade whole series for 5 pages of characterization about those characters instead. Not everything can be Fraction, Aja, and Wu's incredible Hawkeye, where Hawkeye is so explored on every page. Some things are just surface level reads, like Wolverine Max was just like a really surface level read. It never went that deep into the psychology of Wolverine. I read the whole thing. I understand that there is internal thought there. It is not the same thing as delving into something new. I was excited to see Mimic, Post, Toad, and the Blob. Kitty is so generous, so warm. Marrow is still at this point written really unceremoniously uneven. We're not closing in on exactly a character for her yet, so she's really letting me down. Storm is kind of coasting on she's Storm. Gambit, Rogue, and Wolverine are coasting on their Gambit, Rogue, and Wolverine. One of the things that not enough people consider, though, is that Kurt and the religious angle versus the swashbuckler, you know, like, not a lot of people think to themselves, Priest Errol Flynn. So, like, it's tough to balance the two sides of Kurt. And Colossus should be a blue sky king. This dude should be posting and hitting like 2.1K in 2 hours. But instead, people read the text and go, oh, this guy. And nobody wants to follow him. And so the truth of Colossus here is they do a great job capturing Colossus, which means he sucks. They do a really great job of capturing the duality of Kurt, which means most audiences don't want to go that deep. So it's a mixed bag of characterization for me. It doesn't leave me feeling, as a reader, particularly fulfilled on any one of those characters, but the overall character piece of the X-Men is so beautifully in focus beginning to end in this arc. I give the arc, like I said, a B+. I know you said you give it like a B+. This is the Hunt for Xavier arc for me.
Yeah, and I think you are underselling some of the characterization. I'll say, like, Storm, not even just really coasting on being Storm, yes, but she's also in the leader position. It suits her. This is an earlier, yes, she's been leader of the X-Men before, but it's sort of been a minute.
Dude, this is 20 years into the 50-year period of the X-Men, so you're not wrong. This is earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. It's also just like, she's unquestionably the leader. There's no Cyclops around sort of being like, well, should I be the leader? It's just like Storm's the boss, Storm's in charge. I think the thing with Marrow is having her there is really interesting. Having this really reluctant kid who is just so jaded, but the writing in order to do that this is a constant problem in comics, even to this day. It violates the yes and rule of improv, and she's just constantly shit talking everything they do, but nobody's funny. The character could probably work as just a constant naysayer. She was funnier. There are a few times where she makes a couple jabs at Wolverine that are funny. But for the most part, she's just shitting on everything they do. It's interesting to see a character who has been told, like, you now have a family, you now have a group of people that love you, but they have to figure that out and learn that. That's an interesting story of character development. It is not fun to watch somebody just go, no, to everything. So, like, you can see that they both
Amy Schumer isn't popular anymore.
Blammo. Except her family is Chuck Schumer, so that's even, no one cares. You can see both writers want to show you that this jaded person has something inside her that makes her an X-Man, and that Storm especially sees something in her that needs this family and that needs her to be part of this family. And there's a lot, like, every time she's on the page, I'm sort of clinging to the edge of my seat, waiting to see something happen. And instead, she just kind of is miserable. Mm-hmm. If things like that were just finessed, this absolutely could be an A story. But yeah, I mean, like, Wolverine's always coasting on being Wolverine. Kitty, I think, fares really well here. I think her capability, the fact that she can use Cerebro is technologically is in itself just sort of like don't forget, Kitty's really smart and really, really capable. She's a really capable fighter throughout. The fact that she is dedicated to the Professor in a very specific way, where they talk about, like, who idolizes him and who doesn't. Gambit says specifically to Marrow, like, I think he's just a man. He also helped me a lot, so I am gonna, like, go try and help him, but, like, no, I don't put him on a pedestal, which is something that the other X-Men won't really say to Marrow. But then Kitty has a whole other relationship with Xavier that sort of plays out in this a bunch, as she is the one who has to do a lot of the physical rescuing of Xavier and, like, keeping him phased out. That's all really cool. So it's definitely not the best characterization for everybody, but it is not bad. And there's a lot here that you can see that everybody was trying to do something with, like, had ideas. Like, not everything is executed perfectly, but they had some really good thoughts. Cerebro, the villain, really cool. Just looking to the future. How in the world? I don't know how you pitch this to Marvel and nobody says, okay, how do you explain Hunt for Xavier if you're gonna retcon that they made these Cerebro cradles the whole time? This is the same Cerebro, and you're saying that at one point it was sentient, and then somehow we pack that all away and never talk about it or worry about it again, such that what happened. And then the helmets gain sentience on Krakoa anyway, and it doesn't come up. Like, how could any of this have happened and this issue is never referenced once, or this arc is never referenced once? It's such a bummer to me, because this is good. Like, this is totally good during the Krakoan era. There's no way that Rom Space Knight deserves a reference and this does not. My husband is laughing in the background. That's how absurd this is.
I completely agree. Honestly, that is the same way I felt about this absurd, and that is OOBB, absurd, Doctor Doom X-Men annual. Ladies and gentlemen, this annual...
Timeless, I've never met her.
Oh my god, truly. It posits that Doctor Doom saw Onslaught before Onslaught happened, and began...
Dr. Doom saw Onslaught before the first issue of X-Men was ever published, like before the events of the first issue of X-Men.
And, like, travels the timeline of everything that will become X-Men. Decides, after battling Phoenix, when he then battles Phoenix, not say anything. This is so nutty. He's like, I've heard of this Magneto, but who is this Xavier? Like, this is one of the most, oh my God. And then they see Days of Future Past at one point. This issue, like, if you need a crash course in how Vuk became the bad guy of the Dark Phoenix movie, this is it. This is an obscure, absurd issue. It is well drawn. For what it is, it's well written.
I think it's good. I mean, like,
how does this make Onslaught possible? Yeah, exactly.
It can't exist, and yet it does. But comics does that all the time, so I completely forgive it. I'm not joking when I say timeless Uishi, because, like, I do think this is better than most of the timeless stuff. This is, in a lot of ways, all of the giant sizes with Miss Marvel that we just did rolled into one issue. And, you know, a lot of times, like, Marvel complains so much that we don't buy their books. I would have bought this. This came out in 1998. I would have bought it. But, like, rather than selling me giant size #1 and then giant size House of X and then giant size, AOA and giant size Days of Future Past. So I had to buy all those. And then the last one, I would have bought one issue, and a lot of people would have bought one issue that was great, that was cool and kooky and weird, and it really is the same premise. Like, Doctor Doom just time travels through the X-Men's history and, like, kind of tries to stay out of it because we can't totally change all of the events that happen, but then also gets in it a little bit because it wouldn't be fun if he didn't, and ultimately nothing really changes, but also did stuff change? Who knows? You kind of leave the door open for it, and that's good serial writing, because if somebody else can come later and remember what you did and figure out how to write something into it where it could make sense, you've just left them a cool little treasure chest that could be something. It bums me out that this has never, like everything else, been referenced again. One World Under Doom, I could think of a lot of fun ways just to throw out there that this happened. When Doom was at the very end of Krakoa, was, you know, creating Doom's X-Men, and also was being very cool to the X-Men about the fact that, like, he liked them, that he liked Miss Marvel. Like, this would have been an interesting thing to bring up. Yeah, this is weird and kooky and stupid and fun and, like, can't ever really be anything, and especially now. But, like, I don't know if somebody had this, I'd go to Marvel and figure out a passion project pitch for this just to, like, have it be a thing, because I had a lot of fun reading this.
If you told me that this somehow led to Doomslot, I would be 1,000% into it.
Yeah.
I think my biggest problem is hindsight is never actually 2020. Hindsight is 2020 with the knowledge of now. And the whole point of Onslaught was you didn't understand where it was all coming from, where it was all going. And this presents a world where someone did and did nothing.
Yeah.
The truth is, I don't think Doom would actually let all of the Fantastic Four be dead if he knew that there would be a Valeria one day. Like, there's just some steps somewhere where then maybe Victor, as it were, in this case portrayed by, of course, none other than Robert Downey Jr. in a mask, would be like, I think, like, there would be moments. And so, like, I appreciate this story. I appreciate what it does, and that it's an annual, that it's not like an arc, that it's not the 6 issues of Hunt for Xavier. That's significant. But for my money, I felt this asked a lot of me.
Did you feel up to the challenge of giving it what it asked?
Oh, I gave it every bit it wanted. I served it up on a plate. But what it wanted from me was to allow for the fact that one of the greatest supervillains of all time knew that one of the most over-the-top supervillains of all time was going to kill everyone he wanted to get to kill. And, like, I don't know, I feel like, truly, I'm not being silly, but, like, if Magneto saw that Captain America got to kill Hitler, he'd be like, now, mine. And, like, I do feel like a little bit Onslaught's going to destroy the entire Marvel universe. Oh, shit. Like, it's exactly what you were saying about Apocalypse, the 12 Apocalypse, being, like, not even a memory for Hoxpoxpocalypse. Like, it's a tough pill to swallow. It's a big one. It's a horse tranquilizer, and I have a very tiny throat in this story.
I'm okay with it. I'm along for the ride. I am, 6 beers deep on the river rafts, just letting the current take me. except for, and I did pull it up just now to confirm how strongly Doom is present in Onslaught universe, the issue that ends it. At the very end, he's like, you could lie, you could like finesse it and be like, yeah, I don't know, he knew everything that was going to happen while he's standing there clearly looking surprised, whatever. But then the last thing that happens to him is Tony Stark grabs him and flies him into the energy vortex to die along with the rest of them. And you're telling me he didn't know that? Like, he wasn't prepared for that in all of this? Because the writers, the Marvel had 20/20 hindsight because they wrote this fully and then allowed somebody to publish this story over a year later. At some point, somebody could have been like, based on what we have already said happened last week, you have to write a little bit more as to why he's standing there surprised when the Onslaught issue takes place. If not for that, I think this would be pretty freaking cool.
All right. I would absolutely take that. You have increased this issue for me. I will take my grade up from a C+ to a B because there is a lot of history that does make this make a little bit more sense. And you know what? As soon as you said that Tony sucks him into the other world, I immediately accept that Victor thought to himself, oh, a world to enslave. Great.
Oh, yeah, 100%. This is about a B for me.
So from one shot in the form of the X-Men Doctor Doom annual to a one shot that, like, again, incredibly prescient for what it winds up meaning. Brian K Vaughn, goes on to be the Runaways guy, Ex Machina guy, the Why the Last Man guy, the Saga guy. And here he's just that dude writing a fill-in X-Men issue, which makes me feel so good about my contributions to things. Hey, Young Men in Love, Volume 1, what's up? I, number one, actually hate the concept of this issue, that Kitty has to teach Marrow how to feel cool or beautiful or whatever, after Marrow throws a rat at her. Right off the bat, fuck this book, fuck this, I don't want it. But honestly, this is kind of a fun, good issue. Like, Brian K Vaughn was in a comic book writing masterclass when he was at NYU, and it really helped him get his foot in the door and understand storytelling. This is something he has talked about before. I think that more often than not, Unlimited is used as a way to facilitate people getting to see characters they don't often get to see. So when it facilitates characters you see often getting storytelling moments, that's amazing. I so appreciate this because the best moment of this entire issue is the proof that BKV lived in New York City when Gambit throws a Metro card. There is always a Metro card in my wallet. Sometimes I don't bring my AAA card. Sometimes I forget my Amex, but I never forget my Metro card. So Gambit throwing a Metro card was like New York City romance for me. That was like skyline storytelling. That was exquisite. Really, that was a Peter Luger's on a Friday night.
Yeah, this is a sweet issue. I like this in general. The Patrick Gleason art actually really I thought it was not going to work for me when the issue started.
That first 2 or 3 pages is so blocky. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it actually really does work. It starts to feel kind of pop arty. I am super annoyed that Kitty is wearing a Dazzler World Tour 87 shirt because, again, it means that at least 10 years have to have passed. But it's cute. It's a funny reference. And yeah, I mean, the issue is called Cat and Mouse, which, Marrow tortures Kitty by bringing a dead mouse to her, which is a very cat-like behavior. But of course, Kitty is named Kitty or Shadow Cat. So we've got this very interesting interplay of stuff going on here, including the idea that Marrow is ultimately, a mouse inside. She's a little girl. And I think that's something that is sort of lost a lot of the time, which is that Marrow's supposed to be young. Marrow's supposed to be like really, really a kid. It sucks that, one, anatomy is difficult for artists to do. Like it's such that it's really easy to draw men with big muscles because it's much easier to show that definition and just get it drawn than it is to sort of make people have more nebulous body shapes. And similarly, it's easier to draw women with very like full proportions, such that like it's kind of difficult to draw a girl or a boy who is going to be sort of in the middle of that process. You know, you can draw like Franklin Richards as a kid, but to over and over again produce somebody who looks 13 or 14 is just not the easiest thing for artists to do. And so they will typically scale it down and make somebody who is 13 or 14 look very young, or they will scale it up and make somebody who is 13 or 14 look like they are over 18. It leads to a lot of not fun stuff, but it also just leads to the unfortunate fact that like you miss the fact that these people are not supposed to be as old as they look. Marrow is supposed to be younger than Kitty. Kitty is still supposed to be pretty young, although, you know, as Nico said, we are aging her up because otherwise the Pete Wisdom stuff is horrible, rather than just being like, you know, whatever. This is a mouse of a girl coming to the cat that is Kitty, who is trying to sort of impart wisdom and again do that thing that Storm wants for Marrow, which is to make her a part of this family. And they sort of go back and forth, and there's some really interesting things. There's a moment where Kitty is about to tell Marrow that she's beautiful, and Marrow stops her and says, "Don't you dare say another syllable." People are going to get better about having this conversation over the next few years. There was a lot of like, we're all perfect, like, so just go with it in the X-Men, that sort of didn't account for the fact that looking like Marrow just isn't, your life is going to be more difficult. Like, yes, everybody, we're all mutants, we're all in this together, but being, you know, a cis white man with a nice body is a lot easier to be a gay man than, you know, to be fat. And I have experienced both, so I can, you know, say that very confidently. Being Kitty is easier than being Marrow, and at this time, the books really weren't equipped to have that discussion. And so it starts to, and then it stops itself, which I really did appreciate. But something I have always loved about X-Men, about mutant culture, and this comes up more later, but I thought about it here, is this idea that because mutants are raised among mutants and in a world of mutants, there is this not just tolerance for people who look weird. It's like sexy to mutants. Like, Glob Herman is sexy to somebody who looks totally like a baseline human but has wind powers, because that person grows up in mutant culture and is raised to just believe that like people come in literally every single form, including like looking part shark, part person, you know. So there's sort of, when Kitty starts to say you're beautiful, I think she's gesturing at that idea that's going to come up a lot more, you know, in things like District X and, you know, Morrison will deal with this a bunch, but just this idea that for mutants, all forms literally are beautiful because that's part of their culture. You know, leave it to Brian K Vaughn at this point, where we're not quite talking about mutant culture yet, to start the seeds of that conversation.
You know, and it's so funny because he's going to go on to write like one of the most, I guess, important mutants, in that, you know, Molly Hayes, as a member of the mutant people, is one of the only successful mutants to exist outside of the X-Men. It's like her and Prodigy, you know, and please correct me, please. We love to hear from you guys, and especially with this new era, chime in. Let us know what you're thinking. Get in those comments. We think you're cool. It's sort of a part of the queer discussion, because like, I think many women, straight women, find the male butt very sexy, but I don't know that many women are taught to think that men in jock straps are sexy. But gay men are taught to fetishize athleticism, to fetishize everything that goes along with that. And so many gay men come to the sexual experience excited about men in jock straps, whether they're tops or bottoms or whatever, right? And so I think what you're talking about is that learned opportunity of experience, where you come into this and say, oh yeah, I'm into that. Because like, you know, you always hear that, oh, you're a boob or a butt man. Why don't you ever hear you're a neck or a feet man? Like, you know, and that's two things like that are fetishized. And so like, this idea that you are taught anything less than what is aesthetically pleasing, it's just never really vibed with me. So that this book goes out of its way in its own 90s form. And don't get me wrong, BKV would go on to get queerness wrong with X-Mach. And if I ever started a podcast on X-Mach, I would never stop. But I really appreciate what you're pointing out, because actually our next issue kind of deals with that again. Uncanny 365 is a fascinating story and a love song to Illyana, and it's one of the 5 pillars of bringing back Illyana, I think. It's New Mutants, Truth or Death. It's the Mikhail arc. It is New X-Men, where Illyana comes back, and then it's of course X Infernus. And those are the pillars of what bring Illyana back. I think for everybody reading at the time, it was obvious that if Colossus had any feelings toward Marrow, they were kind of trying to find a way to forgive himself for not being a better big brother, not being there for Illyana. But one of the things that I think about on the last page is there's this beautiful drawing by Colossus that features Marrow in the group shot, and she's lovely. And she's even labeled it P.S. I do not look like this, right? Because it looks like Hellboy, down to the giant goggles on the forehead. It looks like Hellboy. As someone who's done a Hellboy cosplay, that's a Hellboy look. I think the idea that in order to be a woman, Marrow has to be beautiful becomes an inescapable part of the discussion, to the point where during the Alan Davis tenure, she has the ability to completely retract the bones on her face to be a lovely lady. She could join the cast of Suddenly Susan at this point in time. And it kind of makes no sense, because the idea of the Morlocks of Marrow was a bigger picture of ugly can be beautiful. Just the fact that, Callisto could have gone out to dinner with Grace Slick and nobody would have thought of it, or Grace Jones and nobody would have thought of it. These ideas that she could be in a white person's world or in a queer person's world was such an intrinsic part of who Callisto was. You could just take the eye patch off and she would fit. Marrow doesn't have an eye patch that can come off. Marrow is meant to be that being a Morlock is so serious that Grace Slick would be like, not somebody to love. But Grace Jones would be like, I'll work with her, not Lady Gaga. And that's kind of the point of Marrow. And so I love what you're hitting on, because it winds up being forgotten by the creators shortly after this in a way that is the dilution of what makes this character so effective for me.
And then, it's unfortunate because so many people will show up who have, again, Glob Herman comes to mind, like really cool mutants come up who are visibly mutated. And the books really go on to reckon with that. I've always felt like the X-Men are at their coolest when like the sexiest guy among the mutants that are hanging out together is a person who, a baseline human would find frightening. For the X-Men and for mutants, that's just one of their people. That's a cool guy. Like, what a cool mutation to have. Like how we celebrate that. Like, it's all part of the celebration. Marrow just never got to be part of the celebration. There was always this thing of like, but how can life be easier? And that was in celebration of Christmas and in grief of the fact that Diane Keaton has passed. I keep seeing the clip of her from The Family Stone where Sarah Jessica Parker is trying to say, like, wouldn't you want a straight child just so life would be easier for them? Diane Keaton just slams on the table and says, God damn you. And again, it's that thing of like, in the 90s, there was this idea that like, wouldn't we want every mutant to eventually be able to look like a baseline human so that life will be easier for them?
It's like the characters on Pluribus that want to join with the group.
Wouldn't it be easier? There is now much more of this idea it has been explored more. I sort of don't really know what the mission statement is right now, but that like, it's not about making life easier. It's about living your most authentic self and like celebrating who you were, how you came into this world and the body that you have. There just have been so many cool examples of that in X-Men over the between the years of this book and today. And it's a bummer that Marrow didn't get to live that a little bit more.
And I think it's because we don't exactly have the same understanding of ugly as we once did. We see ugly as something very different now, and I think for all that it matters, even at this point, Marrow's like a pretty white girl, and she's got like fabulous hair, and like that's just not, it's the age-old adage of I would really rather be disadvantaged in white than disadvantaged in any other culture, because disadvantaged in white is still white. You know what I mean? Like, That is what every critical race theory professor teaches day one. How many of you would like to be treated as a black person? Raise your hand. And, that's what Marrow goes through. She is that. But imagine Marrow versus a black Marrow, where even if she could retract the bones, she would still be treated differently and less fairly, and would still have laws designed against her. Like, that is the conversation that we're sort of saying that the book just can't even come close to at this point. And so that's kind of like the unfairness of a character like Marrow. It is the vantage point of 1998 trying to tell this idea in a way that just can't quite ascend to the purpose. Of course, one of the things that's really important about this story is like the Colossus Ileana is dead story. So this really is very referential to Uncanny 304. And winds up being very referential to, I think it's 390 when Colossus dies. And then in that regard, as you mentioned earlier, Astonishing X-Men Volume 3. This is like a critical point in telling this narrative. And it will come due shortly in its own way, but at the same time, this is nowhere near approaching what we need for a character to go through to complete their arc. And so Colossus is left in a place where, like, and I say this as a big fan of the show, the Kate and Allie version is just as effective as the Breaking Bad version, and it's not. And so, if you're going to tell something with elements out of time, and you're going to tell a story about a person being humbled into their life, you can't tell it in the shiniest, cheersiest way possible. Cheers is great, but It's Always Sunny actually deals with the effects of being an alcoholic working at a bar. So I appreciate this issue, but I definitely am, for all of the A- that I thought this whole episode was, what a great era. I am so much more excited to talk about our Magneto War stuff. Honestly, when we get to Age of Apocalypse, which is our bi-weekly our alternator, I'm fine with Age of Apocalypse. I used to be less fine with Age of Apocalypse. Now I'm fine with it. So, like, when I say that this next couple of weeks is going to be really positive, everybody hold on to your handrails. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas. We are positive here. You know what I mean? It's exciting because where we just were was such a negative place. Where we were was like, we're getting through it. JLA Avengers, we're getting through it. And like, that was tough for me. But I am so proud of what we're covering now. I love these creators. I obviously love the Walt Disney World monorail. And there is something so exciting about getting to be a part of this discussion that, as you pointed out repeatedly, no one else is talking about.
Yeah, I mean, that's what is so exciting to me is I just haven't heard this stuff referenced at all. I mean, it's exciting because I'm one of those people. Like I guess for all that I'm getting really upset, I can't be because I didn't read this either. Wow, what a stupid conclusion to come to this far into it all.
No, yeah, very self-aware in a cool way.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm excited because this is all new to me, and I do love that. And I love that we're starting off on what I feel like is just a very positive note, because yeah, it has been a little tough trying to connect with stuff from not all quite this era, but basically this era that just really sort of let us down a little bit. But this was just a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you know what? One of the things that I am so excited about this era is, as much as I know it, and I probably think I know it, but I don't know it. You are coming to it with new eyes, and you know everything that came before it and everything that came after it. So you're not like, I don't know it. You're like, I understand the way it fits into canon. That's exciting. Not that I wouldn't take somebody who's never read an X-Men comic, jumping on and being like, oh, I'm the third on this, right? Like, thruple it up. But like, the thing that's really engaging here is you're seeing how this makes the puzzle complete, and you're helping me point to things that I think I always took for granted. I read this before I ever read New X-Men. I read Magneto War before I read Planet X. So when people were saying on the CBR forums, Magneto would never do that. Guys, no, he did it constantly. And, you know, that's the magic of hindsight as not a creator, hindsight as a fan, and you get to put that all together. You know, it's coming to understand that as great as Emotion is by Carly Rae Jepsen, emotion would not exist without Call Me Maybe. And like, it's kind of putting that flow together. There can be like a genius song and then a genius album. New X-Men is the genius album. Finding these genius songs is so exciting for me. And doing it with somebody that I have such respect for the opinion of makes it even more magical, I guess. Because like, you know, when we're talking about Apocalypse and Hoxpox, that's a guy who literally does magic. The 12, that's basically magic. And we're going to talk about the 12. We're going to talk about Magneto War. We're going to talk about all of Age of Apocalypse. We're going to talk about 2099 alternating with things like New X-Men, Extreme X-Men, X-Men by Joe Casey, X-Men by Chuck Austin. I guess fine because it's there. The Frank Thierry run on Wolverine. We've got amazing things in store for you guys. You're going to get to hear Bendis doing Secret War with Gabriel Dell'Otto with us. So like, we have the magic coming, but getting to do it with you has just been the best part.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's been a minute since we have been on a project that started on a good note and, you know, is showing a lot of promise and is stuff that we like and is, you know, there's a lot of good here. I think you and I both like liking things and like talking about stuff that we enjoy through no fault of anybody's. Has been a minute, and it was really, really fun to get to talk about. What's the count on how much we read today? 8 issues? 10 issues?
Oh my God. Like, no, dude, like 14 issues.
14 issues. It's been great to talk about 14 issues that just in general, we really had a lot of fun with. We really enjoyed. Like, you get even Unlimited 21, which is not good.
No.
At the very least, I only wish that we had come to it 2 months earlier so I could just be like, oh, because it was a Halloween issue. But alas.
Until we get an episode where Todd DeZago does a Hollywood Bowl performance of the score to his Halloween issue, this was a really exciting opportunity to revisit what makes X-Men exciting in the 90s in a way that we haven't gotten to do before. I can't wait. You know, guys, next episode, we're going to be talking about AOA Epic Collection Book 1. That's the X-Men Chronicles. That's Tales from Age of Apocalypse 1 and 2. That's X-Men -1, X-Men Annual 96, Blink 1 through 4. That's going to be really exciting, but don't forget to come back and cover more classic 98-99 X-Men with us. We're going to be looking at the Magneto War, which spans X-Men 85 through X-Men 87, and Uncanny X-Men 366 through 368, as well as the Magneto War one-shot. We're going to be taking a look at the Magneto Rex era, which is X-Men 88 through 89, Uncanny 369, as well as Magneto Rex 1 through 3, and Unlimited 23. And then we're going to take a look at the X-Men, the Apocalypse, the 12 Prelude, which is going to be Uncanny X-Men 370 through Uncanny X-Men 371, X-Men 90 through X-Men 91, X-Men Annual 1999, and X-Men Unlimited 24. Guys, hang in. It's going to be a lot of fun. Bi-weekly, keep up with the AOA Epic collections. You guys can check them out. That's going to be 2, 3, and 4 following this. I promise you guys, it's mostly on topic. It's not exactly like the AOA Compendium Omnibus, where the second volume is like nonsense, right? We mostly stay on topic. There's no exiles here. Just hang in. And yeah, I'm really excited about what we got going forward. But listen, dude, if people want to find out about you and what you've got going forward that isn't this show, where can they find you?
You can find me on the socials, mostly Blue Sky, and a little bit on Instagram at TK Accidental. Where can they find you?
You guys can find me all over this amazing show at X's for Podcast. You guys can find me also on YouTube, which this is also on. Hey, what's up? At X's for Show. Don't forget to check us out on all of your socials, X's for Podcast, X's for Comics, X's for Show. And as for me, Nico Action, NicoAction. That's on your Blue Sky, your Instagram, and more. 3 things you guys can do for us. Like, comment, and subscribe. 3 things you guys can do for yourselves. Number 1, please stay safe. Number 2, please be brave. Number 3, please evolve daily. Who you were yesterday, that's X-Men 97. Fun animated show. Who you are today, that's X-Men 98. That's the comics we covered today. Who You Are Tomorrow, that's New X-Men. And until you guys come back to E is for Extinction, we can't wait to see you.
Bye.